Yo guys, Coach Theo here on Common Sense. Welcome back to another lecture, this time without the chalkboard, but today I'm going to give you everything you need in order to build your fitness diet, uncommon sense style. So we're going to go through some of the foods I think are the most important that you should center your diet around and talk a bit about alternatives, but then mainly give you the tools to create a good diet practice, all right? So you understand what you should be focusing on and what isn't so important to focus on, and just how to go about, like the different foods that you should eat, how you should go about them. So some of the things we'll be going through in this video might seem a bit mechanical to you if you're new to all of this. If you're currently someone that just doesn't really have a good diet and eats whatever you feel like, whenever you feel like it, you don't really have any intention with your diet. You have to realize that that might have worked thousands of years ago for hunter-gatherer humans that lived in the forest and just ate whatever berries they could find or ate whatever prey they managed to hunt on that day. In today's society, we're getting polluted from every angle, not like especially through the food. And so if you just autopilot, you're not going to have a good diet. And so in order to reverse this, you're going to have to use some mechanical tools before it ends up intuitive. Like everything I go through for you today are things I've focused on and still have in mind. It's just that it's just second nature at this point. It's in my spine, like we would say in Swedish. So yeah, let's just start with the foods. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about the foods, but if you wanna look up why a certain food, what exactly it contains, and that, you just go Google it, okay? So the food item I put at the top of the list is red meat, and ground beef in particular, because it's just convenient and cheap for a lot of people, but any red meat really. Of course, a great protein source, good animal protein, depending on level of leanness of the red meat you picked. There's some fat in there, and what many of us didn't learn in school is that it's not only a protein source, red meat, it's packed with micronutrients and vitamins, you know, magnesium, zinc, heme iron, more bioavailable form of iron than you would get from any vegetable, creatine that people want to supplement with for the muscle, and the list just goes on. So for this reason, it's at the top of my list. Next, we have eggs, all right? It's very much like the red meat. It's very bioavailable protein in the egg whites, and lots of micronutrients in the egg yolks, lots of B vitamins, healthy fats in the egg yolk. And so we were talking about whole eggs now. No egg white, only mainstream fitness bullshit. It's like the egg yolk is the... And so this, if I had to pick one food item to survive of for the rest of my life, it would either be red meat or eggs. Just the best stuff. Next, I put beef liver, all right? So this is like red meat 2.0. It's just that it would be difficult to eat just liver. Probably not good even at that point, not very natural. But having, imagine like anything that's in the beef liver, there's just extra, more stuff. It's almost easier to talk about what is not in beef liver. And so what it is just for us that think any nutrients are better to get from real food, don't want to have 1,000 supplements in our diet. Just putting beef liver in your diet is going to address so many micronutrient needs. I have a video about my protein yogurts that I make, because it's the difficulty of eating it sometimes, right? You know, how you can kind of cheat eating it like that. I make a daily dose of liver and put them in little bags in the freezer, and I bring them out. And I always chew one piece for the difficult, and of course you can cook liver as well. So next, I put white rice, all right? And white rice, what it really is like, this is basmati rice, but jasmine rice could be good as well. What white rice really is, why it's good for us living this lifestyle, is it's fast carbs that are easily digestible. They're just easy on the gut for most people. There are rare cases of people being intolerant of rice, but that's really all it is. It's not really any micronutrients or anything. It's carbs, pure carbs that are easy to eat a lot of if you bulk, and you don't get gut issues from them. After white rice, I put regular old potatoes. And so potatoes, also a great protein source. It's just that It will contain some more micronutrients, potassium being a main one. And so this potatoes is just a better option for a carb. Like in general, if you could always get in everything you need through potatoes instead of rice, but when you're cutting specifically, it's much higher on the satiety index. It will take longer time to digest potatoes, so it will just help you stay fuller in a calorie deficit, and good for that reason. Next, I put honey. Where did I wanted to have my nice honey in the video. Yeah, not that I think it's super important that you see everything, but people seem to respond more to visual content. So, no, and I'm also very happy because my mom brought me this nice honey from some farm she passed by when she was away. No, but honey, of course, it's just tasty. It just tastes good. It's like, you know, if I ever felt like I missed something like sweet from crappy processed foods, I'm so happy that I get to enjoy honey. Again, it's just fast carbs. There are antioxidants and good micronutrients in this natural sugar source, okay? We're gonna talk a bit more about that in a bit, but it's contextual a lot, nutrition, guys. Sugar isn't just bad. Like, if you're a fat, lazy person that doesn't exercise and you eat tons of hyper-processed sugar in the form of candy and that kind of sweets, yeah, it's no good. For the lean, muscular, athletic, hard work, like that trains every day kind of person with high insulin sensitivity, it's just a good, fast carb source again. So it's contextual. Now I guess I said what I wanted to say later, but we'll relate back to that. We have Greek yogurt, also of course some protein, healthy fats, good source of calcium. That's for my protein yogurt. I use that one mainly. The fats that I like to cook in, sometimes especially when you're cutting, the fats in the foods you eat will be enough, like in eggs or like a medium fatty ground beef or something. But if I add fat to my cooking, I prefer butter or tallow. The animal sources I think are the best. But the one vegetable oil that I like a lot is olive oil too. I guess coconut oil, but I just don't personally have that one as much. Then my favorite and almost the only vegetable I consume raw as it is are carrots. And there are many benefits to carrots. I use it as sort of a digestive catalyst. I just noticed that a carrot per meal makes a belly of steel on the inside. But it also helps remove excess estrogen from the guts. There's a ton of people that like stress the goodness of the carrot. And for this reason, I'm not very much into vegetables, guys. I know it's controversial for a lot of people, but there's a lot of anti-nutrients in vegetables. You have to think that vegetables, they can't run away like an animal could, so they have to protect themselves by being toxic, and therefore a whole bunch of vegetables aren't really great, but the one I really love are carrots. But I put beneath fruits and berries, because a fruit is not a vegetable. And so fruits and berries, I put one I like here. I was going to bring out a little empty package of, what are they called? Raspberries and blueberries. But fruits and berries, you know, antioxidants, micronutrients, some fiber, again, some good sugar, you know. Yes, so I don't have any specific, like the best berries, according to me, are raspberries, blueberries, cranberries. Fruits, there are many good options. I like pears, you know, apples, oranges, pineapples, there's a lot of good stuff. Fermented foods, yeah. And so fermented foods is just many vegetables, by the way, many things that maybe we wouldn't handle as well, we can usually handle well if they're soaked and fermented. It's just for gut support, of course, really. I also happen to think many pickled foods taste very nice. Then we have salmon. I like to get, okay, so it's frozen, just like the ground beef, but I like to get salmon in like a couple times per week to get those omega-3s, you know, those kinds of fatty acids from fish, instead of supplementing. Because, you know, if you can get something from food, why not? Also, many of these omega-3 supplements seem to be contaminated. So salmon is a tasty fish, also get a good amount of magnesium in there. So why not just get the omega-3s and that from actually just eating salmon? Whey protein, I put. This is absolutely not something that is essential for a diet. Like, protein is protein. This is just concentrated protein. What I like about it is that it is for us that eat very clean. it is a way for us to, well, whey protein, to get, well, protein that if you find a taste that you like, it's tasty. You can make a dessert like my protein yogurt there. Of course, there are some additives in there. It's like you be the judge. I personally don't think, I've been consuming whey for years. The only thing I ever notice is I think the little acne I can get comes from the wrong kind of whey sometimes. But then what it also is, if you somehow struggle to get in enough protein, I mean, I think this should be the easiest task, especially for like guys in my age. But for instance, older people that just, like my dad, that just eats way too little protein. He can train the way I tell him, but it doesn't eat enough protein. Something like this would be great for him because he's so far from his target. Of course, he doesn't listen to me, he doesn't eat protein anyway. But yeah, just nothing you need in your diet. It's just nice to have in there. Yes, nuts. This is a bulking food, you know. The best nuts, according to me, are paranuts, walnuts, macadamia nuts, hazelnuts. Look, there's many micronutrients there. Then you could argue how many of these, we can have some digestive issues with nuts, but these ones I find to work well. They're good bulking food because it's just, you know, they're high on all the macronutrients, carbs, fats, protein. Then we have salt. Salt, very important, all right? Salt gets a bad rap because, you know, a lot of fat diabetics, they can't excrete the salt because their body isn't functioning the way it's supposed to. So it's not the salt that's the issue, it's when it stays in the body. But a healthy body will regulate, you will just pee out the excess. But salt, it's so important, it's much more important. If you have a sodium deficiency, it's much more important to get enough salt for performance and just health, well-being. I promise you, salt, it's the first thing I do every day, a glass of water with some salt. And then, you know, like this one, just try, this is an unrefined sea salt. You know, we don't avoid additives when we can, and we get some nice trace minerals apart from just sodium chloride there. So these are the foods I mainly eat. Of course, there are some swaps I will do and that, and if I eat with someone else or eat out and that. But so, of course, chicken, turkey, other fish, you can have these instead of red meat. I just happen to think that red meat is the most important one. There are other carb sources. I'm sure in your country there's something that I barely know about that would be a decent carb source. But something like sweet potatoes, real good too, contains a lot of micronutrients. But the point here really, like the foods I mentioned are, I think they are great, like for anyone pretty much. But the point is, like, have this at the back of your mind when you consider, when you create your diet, like, oh, this would probably work instead of this, or this is probably something I can vary this food item with. You know, just keep it at the back of your mind. The last thing I wanted to say that I did forget is, like, with the fruits, for someone like me, I think fruit juice is great. And it's again the nuance with sugar, but also with stuff that's processed. Because again, of course, a fruit juice is processed, even if it's a freshly squeezed orange juice, it's technically processed because it doesn't come like that in nature. Then are, of course, the ones made from concentrate and stuff. And look, for someone like me, again, muscular, lean, a good insulin sensitivity, moves a lot and trains hard every day. These fruit juices are just, again, fast carbs, and there happens to be some micronutrients and a little bit of fiber depending on the fruit juice. So even a more processed fruit juice, you know, again, even just sugar as it is, not in this complex of a bunch of crap ingredients, for the lean, healthy, fit individual, it's not a bad thing. So it's contextual, it's a good point to end on, I guess, that nutrition, it isn't one food is good or bad. It's not black and white. It depends on the context, you know. It's like just nuts. It's not a good idea for someone with a low metabolism wanting to lose weight, but for someone bulking or having a hard time putting on weight, it's good. Same with a fruit juice. If you're a diabetic and you're fat, yes, it's not a good thing. If you're the opposite, lean, fit, muscular guy, absolutely. It's just a good, easy carb source. So let's talk about some foods to avoid. Like some foods, it's black and white too, that it's not, there are few foods that I have a complete like zero ever policy with. But something I generally avoid are oats and grains, because I just don't think humans are made to handle that, again, unless soaked and fermented. But it's more like animal food, you know. But my policy with a thing like that is like, I never have pasta or bread at home, for instance. It's not part of my basic diet. But if I eat at a restaurant that they serve bread, I'll have it. If I would go to a friend's place and he made me pasta or spaghetti bolognese, I would eat it. It's just like, generally, I prefer rice or potatoes as a base, starchy carb source. And then, of course, any hyper-processed food, obviously, you know, it's like we don't have to list all the stuff. But then one of my few that I almost completely know, like zero in my diet policy, are these seed oils. Like, go somewhere else if you want to get into the rabbit hole with that, but it's like, many of these oils have not been around for more than like 100 years. Some of them come from like plants that barely contain any fat. Like I said, having the concentrated form of the fat was never anyone's business to begin with. Many of these oils they now put in foods, they were like motor oils and stuff to begin with. So all these like safflower oil, soybean oil, canola oil, all this shit, avoid it like the plague. I do very few exceptions where maybe I had a protein bar at some point where, okay, there's a little bit of seed oil there too, but generally this, avoid. Then of course all these hyper-processed foods, but I wanted to nuance that a little bit, that you see that there are some things like protein powder, it is processed. I mean, some of these foods are because you just don't have the other option living in the modern world in a city like this. It has to be pasteurized, this Greek yogurt. I don't have a choice, you know. And so it's not black and white. Again, like super processed, if it's like a food that it's completely just things being separated and put into a new product, of course, more often than not a good thing. But like, you know, like I said, fruit juice, whey, some of these food items, it's like, it's not that any processing of a food is inherently bad and destroys it. But generally, of course, it's a good rule of thumb. The less processed your food is, the more just clean whole foods, the better. Okay, so now let's talk about the macros you should have in your diet. Well, generally, for our purposes, us that are drawn to this kind of channel, we want 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight, or 1 gram per pound of body weight, and I should say of ideal body weight. You don't need more protein because you're really fat. With that being said, that would be a decent strategy sometimes to stick to a deficit, to eat higher protein. But when we talk about what we need and our target should be in general, it's 2 grams per kilo or 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. We want around 1/3 of our calories from fats and the rest from carbs. So when we go between like a cutting macros, maintenance macros, and bulking macros, it's generally the carbs that where we turn up and down. But it doesn't have like to be like that completely. It can be a bit with the fats too. What I say generally, I would like, the more carbs I eat always, the better for performance, you know. But then it's kind of like whatever makes it work. The total amount of calories, the protein and the total amount of calories are the most important. I just advise never go super low on either fats or carbs. But if the ratio there changes a little bit as you go from bulking to maintenance to cutting, that's not the end of the world. Total calories and protein, main importance, highest importance. And then the other two, just don't go super low on either of them, all right? Yes, and so a goal meal, what it would look like, how you create a meal is you want a protein source, like the red meat or the eggs, you know, or some fish or turkey or something like that, and a carb source, like the rice or potatoes, a fruit and a vegetable on the side, you know, some fermented fruits or a carrot, eat a pear or something. This is not something I do 100% of the time, but it's kind of a good rule of thumb. Of course, always salt every meal. We talked about the importance of salt. And so then what you want to do is create a base structure for your diet. Like, this is what I want you, this is so important, and this is what makes things so easy for me. That like I said, in the back of my spine, I have some kind of route template for how I go about my diet. And it's always my starting point for however I adjust my diet for my new goal, right? So, and to do this, I of course am a proponent of intermittent fasting, but I don't think everyone has to, all right? There are many good things about it that I won't talk too much about here, but often it's easy to think that, okay, I have an 8-hour eating window, I have 3 meals. But even if you don't have a certain eating window like that, what you want to come up with is like a structure. What do your meals typically look like? Like the ingredients, the size of it, and when do you eat them, right? So this is your base structure that always at the back of your mind or spine. And then that's what you change. That's your starting point when you go into cutting or bulking, if you started as a maintenance structure, or when you go on vacation, for instance, and you can't just, you're in a new environment, you can't control your diet in the same way, so use that structure. Or when you go out to eat, or whatever it is that changes, you have this base structure. So my example with this, my base structure for a long time has been a 16-8 intermittent fasting with 3 meals. And I'll tell you now the most recent, like what it looked like and what it changed to, okay? So when I've been kind of maintaining for a while before starting cutting, I did a sort of recomp. So I ate around my maintenance calories. 3 meals in an 8-hour eating window. And then my first meal would be at 9. I will eat white rice with 6 eggs. I will have some honey. I will have a carrot and salt, of course. Then at 1, I will have my lunch, which would be ground beef, patties, and white rice. Carrot, salt, maybe a fruit on the side. And then I would have my protein yogurt, and then, because I still was keeping my calories higher, with the Greek yogurt, honey, whey, berries, but then I would have nuts in there to get the calories up. And then I would just intuitively consume some fruit juice throughout the day, all right? And so when I maintained body weight for a long time on this routine, and then when I go into cutting, I take the same structure, but I take my first meal there, I remove the rice now, and now I just have the eggs and honey and salt and a carrot, because I have to reduce my calories, right? What I also do for the strategy that I'm gonna have to go be a little hungrier is I delay when I eat my first meal, and I also tighten up the eating window just a little. So now instead of eating at 9 for the first time of the day, I do it at 11, all right? And then I will have my next meal at around between 2 and 3. And that would be, now I would just cap the amount of meat that was a little bit varying when I was maintaining at 250 grams of ground beef. And then I swapped the white rice for potatoes, because this is gonna be more satiating to me now when I'm eating in a deficit. I have the carrot still, right? I do my same protein yogurt around 3 hours later. It's just that now I've swapped these nuts for rice puffs that I don't really put them here in the important foods. It's just what I have some texture there, but it's barely any calories. And then I would just remove this sporadic intuitive juice drinking, right? So you see, it was the same, it's my base structure that I just did little, turning different levers or whatever to adjust to my new goal. Another way I've adjusted my structure before is to remove. So I have 2 meals instead, still push them up, but then maybe I ate first at around 12, 1, and then again 5 hours later. And now I could eat 2 meals that were bigger in total, but I end up in a deficit, right? And I still used my structure to create this. And so a last example is that I know I will have said some things that are relevant in a video that should have come out the day before this about the second best option mentality instead of perfectionist mentality. But I will be going to Gotland, the Swedish island, when I know I can't eat as I normally do, and I won't go into exactly how I'll do it there, because also I'll come up with that when I'm there. But I'll always be using this base structure that I've come up with. It's always at the back of my spine. It's always my starting point for whatever situation I presented with, like, okay, how do I use my starting point here to create whatever is possible, like either in this situation, this circumstance, or for my new change of focus, my new goal, right? Let's see. What more do we have? Like, yeah, well, this is pretty much it, guys. It's like, of course, it will talk a little bit about the macros. Like, use a calculator to begin with, right? Just put your stats honestly. Google a calorie calculator and put your stats honestly. They will be, unless you're super overweight and you're some kind of extreme end, you probably have to put in something more closer to your like ideal weight to get reasonable numbers. But in general, if you're honest there and rather like be like instead when you pick activity level on that, rather give yourself too low than too high. It will, you know, it will be fairly accurate in most cases. And yeah, then I told you already, right, how you would adjust your macros. It would mainly be from the carbs when you switch between cutting and bulking, but it can be from the fats as well. The protein is going to stay pretty constant most of the time. But yeah, guys, it isn't all that complicated. It's like many things when it comes to living a good, healthy life and getting fit, you know, it's not complicated. It's simple, but not easy, all right? So everything, there's nothing more about my own diet practice that I think about at this point than what I've told you in this video. So the last honorable mention I want to give, because of course, always want to try, yeah, like you should be training, you should be sleeping well, all that kind of stuff. But something that kind of relates to this is sunlight. The importance of sunlight. You should be viewing the sun as a source of micronutrients that you can't get from eating. The red morning sun, it sets, you know the red light therapy that people do, right? Like that's the red light. But it sets the circadian clock, so it's going to be easier to go to sleep in the evening. So the morning sun, but mainly the sun in the middle of the day. Vitamin D, everyone knows about, of course, but just testosterone and your hormones in general. There's a reason people get hornier in the summer, guys. It's because the hormones go up from the sun, and I gotta tell you, when I'm sun maxing the way I do, I just feel like a beast on all levels. Let's just put it that way. But yes, guys, please like and comment if there's anything that was unclear, anything that could be another follow-up shorter video when it comes to diet. Please let me know. I comment anyway. It always helps. The algorithm, more people find their way here, so I appreciate it. I do holistic bodybuilding coaching, of course, when I could be a little more specific in your case with coming up with a structure, diet structure, nutrition plan. Nutrition plan is what I like to think of it more like meal plan or you know, you have a plan, a framework for how you go about your nutrition. But of course, holistic bodybuilding, jacked and stacked, body, mind and soul. So you can send me a DM on Instagram or email me. It's in the description below. I'll get back to you with my different programs. You could become a member of the channel or a Patreon to just support me and my content. I appreciate it a lot. You guys can leave a little super thanks comment as well. Please subscribe for more content about fitness, fasting, losing weight, building muscle, self-improvement, stoicism, mental health, philosophy, spirituality, mindset. It is a mindset, guys. Use the mechanical tools to create a nutrition plan that becomes intuitive in the end. Peace.